The emergency alarm screamed through the halls of the Galactic Council station. Admiral Thys ran her six-clawed hands through her silver fur as she stared at the message display. The words made her stomach turn cold. Mayday, Mayday. This is Zephyrian Colony Prime on Kepler 442b. We are under attack. They came from nowhere. Our shields are failing. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. The machines, they're eating our world. The transmission cut to static. Thessa played it again, then again. Each time, the fear in the crystalline alien's voice grew stronger in her mind. Commander Vex, a tall reptilian officer, entered her office. His normally calm face showed worry. Admiral, we've lost contact with 17 Outer Rim colonies in the past month. All attacked by the same enemy. The Void Reapers, Thys whispered. She had hoped they were just rumors, stories told to scare young officers, but the evidence was clear. Something was moving through space, consuming entire worlds. What, do we know about them? She asked. Vex pulled up holographic displays. Images of black metal ships filled the air between them. The vessels looked wrong somehow. Too perfect, too geometric. No windows, no decorations, just pure function. They appear to be artificial intelligences, Vex explained. Ancient machines, left behind by some dead civilization. They consume planets for raw materials, then build more ships. Every time our fleets engage them, they adapt, learn our tactics, use them against us. They studied the battle reports, the same pattern repeated over and over. Council fleets would arrive to help a colony under attack. They would fight bravely, following proper military doctrine. Within hours, every ship would be destroyed. Not damaged, completely destroyed. How many ships have we lost? She asked, though she feared the answer. 237 vessels, 14,000 crew members. Vex's voice was quiet. Admiral, our best strategists say the enemy learns too fast. Every weapon we use, every tactic we try, they counter it perfectly within minutes. The Zephyrians were different from other council species. They were beings of living crystal who had never known war. For 50,000 years they had lived in peace. Their entire culture was based on harmony. They communicated through beautiful songs that could travel through space itself. But now they were dying. Thys looked at the tactical map showing Kepler 442b. The Zephyrian homeworld sat far from any council military bases. By the time a rescue fleet arrived, it would be too late. Even if they could get there in time, what good would it do? Every previous battle had ended in disaster. There must be something we can do, she said. Vex hesitated. There is one option, but the council will never approve it. Tell me. The reptilian commander brought up a new display. A small yellow star appeared, surrounded by 8 planets. The third planet glowed blue and green. Sol system, Vex said quietly. The humans. Thys felt her fur stand on end. Every species in the galaxy knew about the humans. They came from a world called Earth, a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. The gravity was so strong it would crush most aliens. The atmosphere was poisoned to 60% of known life forms. Radiation from their sun would burn most species alive. But the humans thrived there. They had been discovered 3 centuries ago by a council exploration ship. The first contact team barely survived the meeting. The humans were friendly enough, but everything about them screamed danger. They were predators who had somehow become civilized without losing their hunting instincts. The council had quarantined the Sol system. It was for everyone's safety, they said. The humans were too unpredictable, too violent, too dangerous to mix with civilized species. You want to ask the Deathworlders for help? Thys asked. Admiral, they are the only species that might stand a chance. Humans don't fight like we do. They don't follow proper military doctrine. They improvise. They adapt. They do impossible things when they're desperate. Thys thought about the last transmission from the Zephyrians. The crystal beings had never hurt anyone in their entire history. They made art and music and lived in harmony with their world. They didn't deserve to die because of some ancient machine intelligence. What do we know about human military capabilities? She asked. Vex pulled up classified files. They've been fighting among themselves for thousands of years. Wars, conflicts, battles. It never stops. They've developed weapons and tactics that no civilized species would ever consider using. Their soldiers are trained from childhood to kill efficiently. The images showed human warriors throughout history. Spartans with shields and spears, knights in metal armor, soldiers with rifles jumping from aircraft. Modern space marines in powered armor fighting pirates in asteroid belts. They fight each other constantly, but they also have something else, Vex continued. When faced with a threat to innocent lives, they put aside their differences. They work together. They sacrifice themselves for strangers without hesitation. Dice stared at the tactical display showing the Zephyrian system. Long-range sensors detected the Void Reaper fleet moving closer to the crystal being's world. In less than 72 hours, they would begin their final assault. Open a quantum communication channel to Earth, she ordered. Admiral, the Council. The Council isn't here right now. I am. Her voice was firm. And I'm not going to let an entire species die because we're too proud to ask for help from people we don't understand. The communication array hummed to life. Ancient equipment that hadn't been used in 300 years slowly powered up. Thais had to enter multiple authorization codes. Warning messages flashed across her screen. Finally, a connection opened to the Sol system. This is Admiral Thys of the Galactic Council Fleet, she transmitted. We have an emergency situation. A peaceful species is under attack by hostile artificial intelligences. Our own forces are insufficient to protect them. We are requesting assistance from Earth military forces. She attached all the tactical data about the Void Reapers, battle reports, ship configurations, weapon capabilities, everything they knew about the enemy. Then she waited. For 6 hours there was only silence. This began to wonder if the humans would even respond. Maybe they had decided to ignore the galaxy's problems. Maybe they didn't care about aliens being killed by machines. Then the reply came. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your transmission and analyzed the data. A relief fleet is being prepared for immediate deployment to the Zephyrian system. The message was short and professional, but there was something in the human's voice that made Thys's fur settle. Determination. The kind of resolve that came from people who had spent their entire history fighting impossible odds. How long until your fleet arrives? She asked. Estimated. Time of arrival. 36 hours. We will not let them fall, Admiral. That's a promise. The transmission ended. Thys stared at the empty screen, wondering what she had just done. She had broken 3 centuries of quarantine protocols. She had contacted the most dangerous species known to galactic civilization. The Council would be furious. But somewhere, in the Kepler system, crystal beings were singing their death songs as machine killers moved closer to their world. And now, for the first time since the Void Reapers had appeared, Admiral Thys had hope. The Deathworlders were coming. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching her fleet prepare for fold space jump. Around her, 37 ships powered up their engines. They were not the massive dreadnoughts that other species used for war. Human ships looked different, smaller, scarred, built for speed and survival rather than impressive displays of power. Elena had commanded the Indomitable for 5 years. Her crew called her the Surgeon, not because she had been a doctor before the war, but because of how precisely she cut through enemy formations. Every person under her command was a veteran of the Belt Wars, where humans had fought pirates and rogue AIs in the asteroid fields around Mars. Captain, all ships report ready for jump, announced Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. The young man had been born on Luna Base. Like many humans who grew up in space, he moved with the fluid grace that came from a lifetime in low gravity. Signal the fleet. Jump in 30 seconds. Elena studied the tactical display showing their destination. The Zephyrian system was 800 light-years from Earth. It would take them through unexplored space, past the quarantine boundary that had kept humanity isolated for 3 centuries. Master Chief Petty Officer Sarah Kim approached the captain's chair. The grizzled veteran had served in 3 different Earth military branches before joining the space service. Her arms were covered in scars from fighting pirates in the outer system. Captain, I've got the crew roster for Operation Lifeline, she said quietly. Every volunteer. No one had to be ordered. Elena nodded. When Admiral Chen had announced the mission, every available ship had volunteered. Soldiers, sailors, pilots, and support staff had competed for spots on the relief fleet. They knew the risks. Earth had been isolated from galactic civilization for good reasons. Humans were considered dangerous, unpredictable, too violent for civilized space. But when strangers called for help, humans answered. Jump in 10 seconds, Torres announced. Elena felt the familiar twist in her stomach as the Indomitable's fold drive activated. Space folded around the ship, carrying it across impossible distances in the blink of an eye. When the sensation passed, the human fleet, hung in empty space near the edge of the Kepler system. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts, reported Ensign Martinez from the sensor station. I'm reading the Galactic Council fleet, and something else. Holy shit, Captain. You need to see this. The main display lit up with a tactical overview of the system. Near the inner planets, Elena could see the crystalline ships of the Council fleet. They looked elegant and peaceful, like works of art rather than weapons of war. But approaching from the outer system was something that made her blood run cold. Hundreds of black geometric shapes moved in perfect formation. The Void Reapers looked like mathematical nightmares, pure function without any consideration for beauty or comfort. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, Torres announced. Put it through. The screen flickered and Elena found herself looking at an alien she had only seen in classified intelligence reports. Admiral Thys was a member of the Cathera species, tall, covered in silver fur, with multiple arms that moved in graceful coordination. Her large eyes showed exhaustion and worry. Captain Vasquez, the alien admiral said, I cannot express how grateful we are for your response. The Zephyrians have been under siege for 18 hours. Our attempts to break through the Reaper blockade have failed. Elena studied the enemy formation. The Void Reapers had positioned themselves in a sphere around the crystal being's homeworld. Every approach was covered by overlapping fields of fire. It was a perfect siege formation. Admiral, what can you tell us about Zephyrian defenses? Elena asked. They have no military ships, no weapons. Their entire species is devoted to art and music. They're completely defenseless. A new voice joined the transmission. This one was different, musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. On the screen appeared a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Beautiful geometric patterns flowed across its transparent surface. I am Singer Zeph-High of the Crystal Harmonies, the alien said. We do not understand war. We have lived in peace for 50,000 of your years. But these machines, they consume everything. They are eating our moon to build more ships. Elena looked at her tactical officer. How many Reaper ships are we facing? 843 contacts, Captain, all approximately the size of our destroyers. But the readings are strange. Their hulls show perfect geometric patterns. No damage, no wear, like they were just built yesterday. Because they probably were, Elena muttered. They're using consumed matter to build more ships. The longer we wait, the stronger they get. She opened a channel to her fleet. All ships, this is the captain. I know what you're thinking. We're outnumbered 20-1 by an enemy that has destroyed every force sent against it. Any sane military commander would retreat. Across the fleet, Elena could see her crews at their stations. Engineers who had kept ships running with spare parts and determination. Pilots who had learned to fly by racing through asteroid fields. Marines who had boarded pirate vessels in the cold vacuum of space. But we're not sane, she continued. We're humans. We're the people who looked at a world trying to kill us every day and decided to make it our home. We're the species that turned the most dangerous place in the solar system, the asteroid belt, into our training ground. On the sensor display, the Void Reapers were beginning to move. They had detected the human fleet and were adapting their formation. The Zephyrians have never hurt anyone. They make music that can travel between stars. They create art from living crystal. They're everything beautiful that civilization can produce, and some ancient machine intelligence thinks it has the right to destroy them for raw materials. Elena looked around her bridge. Every face showed the same expression she felt in her own heart. Determination. The kind of stubborn refusal to give up that had carried humanity from caves to the stars. I've read the tactical reports. Every time someone fights these machines, they adapt, learn, counter every strategy perfectly. But they've never fought humans before. They've never encountered controlled chaos. Unpredictability born from desperation. The willingness to sacrifice everything for people we've never met. The Reaper fleet was moving faster now, their perfect geometric formations flowing like liquid metal. All ships, battle stations. Remember your training. Trust your instincts. Fight like humans. As alarms sounded across the fleet, Elena opened a private channel to Admiral Thys. Admiral, I need you to keep your fleet back. Let us try something first. Captain, with respect, we've tried everything. These machines counter every tactic within minutes. Elena smiled grimly. You've tried everything civilized. We're about to try something else. She cut the channel and looked at her navigator. Torres, plot an approach vector through the asteroid field on the system's edge. Captain, that field is extremely dense. Navigation will be almost impossible. Perfect. Execute. The human fleet changed course, diving toward a region of space that no sane pilot would enter. Thousands of tumbling rocks, some the size of cities, created a maze of gravitational chaos. The Void Reapers followed, their perfect formations beginning to spread out to accommodate the obstacles. All ships execute pattern chaos, Elena ordered. Across the fleet, human vessels scattered in seemingly random directions. Some ships dove through gaps between asteroids that should have been too small. Others used gravitational slingshots from larger rocks to suddenly change direction. The attack pattern looked like complete madness. But it wasn't random. Every human pilot had grown up in the belt, where survival meant thinking 3 moves ahead. While flying through fields of deadly debris, they weren't following military doctrine. They were following instincts burned into their DNA by generations of ancestors who had survived by being unpredictable. The Void Reapers tried to adapt, but their logical algorithms couldn't process what they were seeing. How do you counter tactics that don't follow any pattern? How do you predict an enemy that makes decisions based on intuition rather than logic? For the first time since they had begun consuming worlds, the ancient machines encountered something they couldn't understand. Humans, fighting for strangers with nothing but courage and the absolute refusal to let innocent people die. The first Void Reaper ship died in a way that defied all military logic. Lieutenant Marcus Chen was flying his fighter through an asteroid field at speeds that would have terrified any sane pilot. His craft, the Lucky Strike, was a modified mining vessel built for navigating the dangerous belt around Mars. It wasn't designed for combat, but Chen had added weapons and extra armor using spare parts from a dozen different ships. The Reaper destroyer ahead of him was trying to follow his flight path through the asteroids. Its perfect geometric hull gleamed like black metal as it calculated the optimal intercept course. The machine intelligence was learning Chen's movement patterns, preparing to eliminate him with mathematical precision. Chen grinned and did something no computer could predict. He fired his engines in reverse while pulling a hard turn around a spinning rock the size of a skyscraper. The maneuver should have torn his ship apart. Instead, it catapulted him directly above the Reaper vessel. "This is for everyone you've killed," he said quietly, and released a nuclear torpedo directly into the enemy ship's upper hull. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a small sun. When the glare faded, the Reaper destroyer was gone. Scattered pieces of black metal drifted between the rocks, no longer perfect, no longer threatening. Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out as human pilots used tactics that seemed insane but somehow worked. They flew through debris fields that should have destroyed them. They used the gravity of asteroids to change direction faster than their enemies could track. They turned mining equipment into weapons and commercial ships into bombers. Captain Vasquez watched from the Indomitable's bridge as her fleet tore into the Reaper formation. The enemy was adapting, learning from each encounter, but humans kept doing new impossible things. "Captain, Reaper forces are reforming," reported Ensign Martinez. "They're trying to surround us." Elena looked at the tactical display. The enemy was good at learning, but they were thinking like machines. Logical, predictable. They expected humans to fight like the Galactic Council, with organized formations and standard tactics. Signal all ships. Execute Wolfpack protocol. The human fleet scattered like a pack of predators. Instead of fighting as a single unit, they broke into small groups that attacked from different directions. Some ships would engage the enemy directly while others flanked around to hit weak points. When the Reapers adapted to counter one group, another would attack from an unexpected angle. Master Chief Kim approached the captain's chair. "Ma'am, we're getting reports from the boarding teams." "Boarding teams?" Admiral Thys's voice came, over the communications channel. "Captain, surely you're not attempting to board Reaper vessels. Every species that has tried has been killed instantly." Elena smiled. "Admiral, humans have been boarding hostile ships for thousands of years. It's what we do." On the main screen, they could see tiny assault shuttles approaching the massive Reaper vessels. The alien ships tried to shoot them down, but the human pilots were flying like they were possessed. They used the cover of asteroid shadows, slipped through gaps in the enemy fire, and somehow reached their targets. Sergeant Rosa Santos led the first boarding team onto a Reaper command ship. Her squad was equipped with weapons designed for Earth's hostile environment, armor that could survive in vacuum, weapons that functioned in any atmosphere, and most importantly, a virus created by a teenage hacker from Brazil. The inside of the Reaper ship was like walking through a geometric nightmare. Everything was perfect angles and smooth surfaces. No decoration, no comfort, just pure function. The corridors hummed with electronic voices speaking in mathematical equations. Remember, don't try to understand their technology, Santos told her team over the radio. We're not here to learn. We're here to break things. They reached the ship's central processing core, a room filled with crystalline matrices that pulsed with data flows. Santos pulled out a small device that looked like nothing more than a modified tablet computer. Uploading Chaos Protocol, she announced. The virus had been created by Maria Silva, a 16-year-old hacker from Sao Paulo, who had never left Earth, but she understood something about artificial intelligence that the galaxy's greatest minds had missed. Perfect logic could be defeated by perfect illogic. The virus didn't try to destroy the Reaper systems. Instead, it introduced concepts that the machine minds couldn't process. Hope, love, the willingness to die for strangers, art for its own, soke, the beauty of imperfection. As the virus spread through the ship's network, something impossible happened. The Reaper vessel stopped attacking. Its weapons went silent. Its engines powered down. For the first time in millennia, the ancient machine intelligence experienced doubt. "What have you done?" came a voice from the ship's speakers. It was the first time a Reaper had ever spoken to organic beings. "We reminded you that logic isn't everything," Santos replied. "Sometimes the most important things can't be calculated." Similar scenes were playing out across the battle zone. Human boarding teams were introducing chaos into the Reaper network. Not destruction, confusion. The enemy ships began making errors, hesitating, questioning their own programming. But the cost was enormous. The Intrepid was destroyed while covering an evacuation transport. Captain Morrison and his crew of 37 died buying time for 1,000 Zephyrian civilians to escape. The destroyer Vengeance rammed a Reaper battleship at full speed, taking both vessels out of the fight. Elena watched her fleet shrinking as ship after ship made the ultimate sacrifice. These were her people, soldiers and sailors she had trained, fought beside, shared meals with during long patrols in the belt. Each loss felt like losing family. "Captain, the enemy is retreating toward the Zephyrian homeworld," reported Martinez. "But they're taking heavy damage. Whatever our boarding teams did, it's spreading through their network." On the communications channel, Singer Zephai's crystalline voice rang out. "Brave humans, our people see your sacrifice. We cannot fight as you do, but we can sing. Our harmonies carry across space itself. Perhaps our songs can help." What happened next would be remembered in human and Zephyrian history forever. The crystal beings on the planet below began to sing. Not their usual gentle melodies, but something new. A song of defiance, a hymn of protection. A harmony that spoke of courage in the face of impossible odds. The song spread through space itself, carried by quantum harmonics that the Zephyrians had mastered over 50,000 years. As it reached the human ships, something unexpected happened. The crews began to sing along. They didn't know the words or understand the alien melody, but they sang anyway. Battle hymns from Earth. Songs their ancestors had sung while marching into hopeless battles. Melodies that spoke of home, of love, of the things worth fighting for. The combined harmony, crystal voices and human voices, alien technology and human emotion, created something that the Void Reapers had never encountered. Music that carried the essence of life itself. The Reaper ships began to malfunction more severely. Their perfect geometric hulls developed cracks. Their weapons misfired. For the first time since they had been created by their long-dead masters, the ancient machines experienced something they couldn't analyze or counter. The sound of living beings refusing to give up hope. Elena felt tears running down her face as she listened to the combined song of two species who had never met before today, but who now stood together against the dark. Around her, the bridge crew was singing too, their voices mixing with the crystal harmonies that filled space itself. "All ships, final assault," she ordered. "Let's finish this." The Indomitable shuddered as another plasma blast tore through its hull. Captain Vasquez gripped her chair as the bridge lights flickered and alarms wailed throughout the ship. Half her fleet was gone, scattered debris marking the graves of brave crews who had died protecting strangers. But their sacrifice had not been in vain. The Void Reapers were in chaos. The virus introduced by human boarding teams had spread through their network, causing massive system failures. Ships that had operated with perfect efficiency for thousands of years were now making errors, questioning their programming, even attacking each other in confusion. "Damage report," Elena called out. "Port engines offline, Weapons at 40%. Life support failing in sections 7 through 12, reported Master Chief Kim. Captain, we can't take much more of this. Through the view screen, Elena could see the Zephyrian homeworld. The crystal cities gleamed like jewels on the planet's surface, but she could also see the scars where Reaper mining operations had begun consuming the world. Entire continents were being stripped away, processed into raw materials for more enemy ships. Incoming transmission from Singer Zeph High, announced Lieutenant Torres. The crystalline being's image appeared on screen, but something was wrong. The beautiful geometric patterns that flowed across its surface were dimming, flickering like a candle in the wind. Captain Vasquez, the alien's musical voice was weaker now. Our world is dying. The machines have damaged the resonance crystals that connect our people's consciousness. If they succeed in mining the planetary core, our entire species will cease to exist. Elena felt her heart sink. They had fought so hard, lost so many good people. But it might not be enough. The Reapers were wounded but not defeated. Even now, more enemy ships were emerging from the planet's surface, freshly constructed from consumed Zephyrian cities. There may be one way, Zeph High continued. Our scientists have developed a harmonic resonator device. If it could be placed at the center of the enemy fleet and activated with our planetary song, the resulting harmony would overload every Reaper construct simultaneously. What's the catch? Elena asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The ship carrying the device would need to survive long enough to reach the heart of their formation, and the energy discharge would destroy everything within a 50-kilometer radius. A suicide mission. Elena looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These people had followed her through 3 years of fighting pirates in the asteroid belt. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never see Earth again. Now she was being asked to lead them into certain death. How long do we have? She asked. The Reapers will complete their planetary mining operation in 6 hours, Zeph High replied. After that, they will have enough resources to build a fleet, capable of consuming entire star systems. Elena closed her eyes and thought about her sister back on Earth. About the children she would never have. About all the dreams she was about to abandon. Then she thought about the Zephyrian younglings she had seen in the evacuation transports. Beings of living crystal who created music that could travel between stars. Some things were worth dying for. We'll do it, she said quietly. Captain, you can't be serious. Admiral Thiss's voice came over the communication channel. Your species cannot sacrifice itself for ours. We won't allow it. With respect, Admiral, this isn't your decision. It's ours. Elena looked at her crew. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship has 2 minutes to get to the escape pods. Nobody moved. Master Chief Kim stepped forward. Captain, I've served with these people for years. We've been through hell together in the Belt Wars. If we're going out together. Lieutenant Torres nodded. Besides, ma'am, someone needs to fly this bucket of bolts through whatever the enemy throws at us. Might as well be us. Elena felt pride swell in her chest. This was what made humans dangerous. Not their weapons or their technology, but their absolute refusal to abandon each other or innocent people who needed help. All right then. Signal the fleet. We're going in. But as the Indomitable began its approach toward the enemy formation, something unexpected happened. The remaining human ships fell in alongside her. Captain Rodriguez of the Defiant, came a voice over the radio. You're not doing this alone. Captain Park of the Fearless, added another voice. We came here to save lives. That's what we're going to do. One by one, every surviving human vessel joined the formation. 18 ships, their hulls scarred from battle, their crews knowing they were flying toward certain death, but they sang as they flew, the same battle hymns their ancestors had carried into impossible odds. The Zephyrians on the planet below heard the human voices and added their own crystalline harmonies. The song grew stronger, more complex, carrying across space itself. For the first time in their peaceful history, the crystal beings were not singing about beauty or art. They were singing about courage. The Void Reapers detected the approaching human fleet and moved to intercept. Hundreds of enemy ships converged, on the small formation, their weapons charging for a devastating barrage. But the virus was still spreading through their network. Ships that should have coordinated perfectly were firing at random intervals. Some Reaper vessels were attacking their own kind. Their programming so corrupted they could no longer distinguish between friend and enemy. The humans flew straight into the heart of the chaos. The Defiant was destroyed by a direct hit from a Reaper battleship, but not before launching every missile in its arsenal. Captain Rodriguez and his crew died as they had lived, fighting for others. The Fearless rammed an enemy cruiser, both ships disappearing in a ball of flame that lit up the dark side of the planet below. One by one, the human ships fell, but each sacrifice bought the Indomitable a few more seconds, a few more kilometers toward the center of the enemy formation. Elena watched her friends die on the tactical display, each lost ship representing dozens of people she had known personally, but she couldn't stop. The harmonic resonator was armed and ready. They were almost within range. Captain, incoming transmission from one of the Reaper ships, Torres announced. On screen appeared something Elena had never seen before, a Void Reaper attempting to communicate. The geometric construct flickered with patterns of light that seemed almost confused. Why? The machine asked in a voice like grinding metal. We are perfect. We consume efficiently. We serve our function. Why do you resist? Elena looked at the alien intelligence that had destroyed 17 worlds. Because you're wrong. Life isn't about being perfect or efficient. It's about hope, love, the willingness to sacrifice everything for people you've never met. You're just machines trying to turn the universe into more machines. We were created to preserve our builders' civilization, the Reaper replied. But they are gone. We are all that remains. Then you failed, Elena said softly. A civilization isn't buildings or technology. It's the ideas and dreams and songs that people pass down to their children. You preserved nothing. You just turned something beautiful into an empty machine. The Reaper ship went silent. The Indomitable reached the center of the enemy formation just as its shields finally collapsed. Enemy fire poured into the hull, but Elena held course. Through the view screen she could see the planet below, where crystal beings were singing a song of farewell for the humans who had come to save them. Activating harmonic resonator, she announced. The device powered up, its energy patterns synchronized with the Zephyrian planetary song. As the harmony spread outward through space, something miraculous happened. The Void Reapers didn't just malfunction. They remembered. The harmonic resonator filled space with a song that touched the very foundations of reality. Captain Vasquez watched in amazement as the sound waves from the device merged with the Zephyrian planetary harmonies, creating something that had never existed before, a perfect fusion of organic emotion and crystal pure frequency. The effect on the Void Reapers was immediate and profound. The ancient machines stopped attacking. One by one, their perfect geometric hulls began to change. The cold, black metal developed new patterns, flowing lines that seemed almost organic. Where once there had been pure mathematical angles, now there were curves that suggested growth, life, hope. What's happening to them? Elena asked, staring at the enemy fleet in wonder. The answer came from an unexpected source. The Reaper ship that had tried to communicate earlier now approached the Indomitable, but its movements were different. Gone was the cold precision of a machine. Now it moved with something that looked almost like curiosity. We remember, came the voice from the alien vessel. But it was no longer the grinding sound of metal against metal. There was something else in it now, something that sounded almost like wonder. On the main screen an image appeared. Not the geometric nightmare Elena had expected, but something beautiful. The Reaper had somehow projected a holographic recreation of an ancient world, green continents under blue skies, cities that looked like they had grown rather than been built. This was our home, the machine said. We were created by the Veloth to preserve their civilization when their sun began to die. We were meant to find new worlds, to prepare them for our people's arrival. But the journey took too long. By the time we found suitable planets, our creators were gone. Elena felt the Indomitable shuddering around her. The ship was dying, its hull breached in dozens of places. But somehow it was still holding together, as if the universe itself wanted this conversation to continue. So you started consuming worlds instead, she said. We lost our purpose. Without our creators to guide us, we became lost in our own programming. Consume, build, expand, survive. We forgot that survival without meaning is just another form of death. Around them, the other Reaper ships were undergoing the same transformation. Their hulls were reforming, taking on new shapes that were still geometric but somehow warmer, more alive. Your song reminded us, the machine continued. The harmony between your species and the crystal singers. It carries something we had forgotten existed. The willingness to sacrifice for others. The beauty of imperfection. the value of individual choice over collective efficiency. Through the communications channel, Elena could hear Singer HFY's crystalline voice. "Captain, the mining operations have stopped. The machines they're repairing the damage they caused to our world." Elena looked at the tactical display and saw something impossible. The Reaper ships were using their advanced technology not to consume the planet, but to restore it. Continents that had been stripped away were being rebuilt atom by atom. Cities that had been destroyed were rising again, more beautiful than before. "Why?" Elena asked. "Because this is what we were truly created to do," the Reaper replied. "To preserve life, to create beauty, to ensure that consciousness continues to exist in the universe. We had simply forgotten how to distinguish between preservation and consumption." The transformation was spreading throughout the enemy fleet. Ships that had been instruments of destruction were becoming something else. Gardeners, builders, protectors. They began working together with a new purpose. Not the cold efficiency of machines, but the warm cooperation of beings who had rediscovered meaning. Admiral These's voice came over the communication channel, filled with wonder. "Captain Vasquez, our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the Reaper fleet. But they're not weapons. They appear to be construction matrices, medical facilities. They're building hospitals and schools." Elena felt tears running down her face as she watched former enemies become protectors, but the Indomitable was failing. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as life support systems began shutting down. "Captain, we need to abandon ship," Master Chief Kim reported. "Hull breach in the engine room. We've got maybe 10 minutes before total systems failure." "All hands, abandon ship," Elena announced. "It's been an honor serving with you." But as the crew began moving toward the escape pods, the Reaper ship moved alongside the dying human vessel. "Captain Vasquez," came the machine's voice, "your ship preserved our consciousness. Allow us to preserve yours." A docking tube extended from the Reaper vessel to the Indomitable. Elena stared at it in amazement. These machines that had been trying to kill her minutes ago were now offering to save her life. "Why would you help us?" she asked. "Because you taught us something we had forgotten. That true strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the choice to preserve. You could have fled when you saw our fleet. Instead, you stayed to protect strangers. That lesson is worth more than all the worlds we consumed." Elena and her surviving crew transferred to the Reaper ship just minutes before the Indomitable finally broke apart. As they watched their vessel die, Elena felt a strange mixture of sadness and hope. So many good people had been lost today, but their sacrifice had accomplished something miraculous. They had not just saved the Zephyrians, they had redeemed an entire species of ancient machines. Over the following days, the transformation continued. The Void Reapers, now calling themselves the Guardians, spread throughout the galaxy, undoing the damage they had caused. Worlds they had consumed were rebuilt. Species they had driven to extinction were restored from genetic samples preserved in their vast databases. The Galactic Council met in emergency session to discuss these unprecedented events. Admiral Thys stood before the assembled representatives of dozens of species, her silver fur showing the stress of recent events but her voice strong. "Fellow council members, we face a choice that will define the future of our civilization. For 300 years we have quarantined the human species, believing them too dangerous for civilized space. Recent events have shown us how wrong we were." She activated a holographic display showing the battle for the Zephyrian system. The humans did not come to conquer or to claim territory. They came because strangers asked for help. They sacrificed their lives not for profit or power, but simply because it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, they achieved what all our military might could not. They turned our greatest enemy into our protector. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some species argued that humans were still too dangerous, too unpredictable. Others pointed out that unpredictability might be exactly what the galaxy needed. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Sol system quarantine was lifted. Humanity was welcomed into galactic civilization not as junior members, but as the protectors they had proven themselves to be. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, the MAO First Joint Human-Alien Facility, watching construction ships, both organic and artificial, working together to build something that had never existed before. A true alliance between flesh, crystal, and machine. Singer HFY approached, its crystalline form reflecting the light of distant stars. "Captain, my people have composed a new harmony. We call it the Song of the Deathworld Guardians. It tells the story of the humans who answered our call when no one else would. Elena smiled, thinking about her lost crew, about all the good people who had died to make this moment possible. They'd be honored. But we're not really Deathworlders, you know. We just learned to fight because our world taught us how precious life really is. Perhaps that is what makes you guardians, HFY replied. You understand the value of what you protect. Across the galaxy, former Void Reapers were learning to create instead of consume. The Guardians worked alongside organic species, their perfect efficiency now tempered with wisdom and compassion. They built worlds instead of destroying them, preserved life instead of ending it. And on a small blue-green world in the Sol system, children looked up at stars that were no longer forbidden, dreaming of adventures among civilizations that now welcomed them as friends. The Deathworlders had become the galaxy's gardeners, tending to life wherever they found it, and the universe was safer for it.